What's up, guys? I promised you a video on the USG, and so here it is. I got a loop of Oregon safety chain here on the grinder. It's 3/8 058, but it'll show you how to grind just about any chain. This happens to be full chisel safety chain, and cuts pretty decent when it's sharp. This chain has been rocked out pretty bad on one side, so you're going to see I'm going to be taking a real heavy pass. And it's kind of going to show off the wheels that come with the USG grinder that really, even taking a heavy pass like this, don't burn the metal of the chain and don't overheat the links, which actually is probably one of my favorite things about these wheels. It's just how much material I can take and not destroy a chain. I'm going to zoom in here on the cutter a little bit. It's going to be tough to get the camera to focus, so bear with me a little bit. But the other thing about this USG grinder is I have the optional foot pedal attachment. See if I can pivot down and show you that there. There it is down there on the floor. And rather than manually running the clamp with, requiring an extra hand or an extra step in the process, I can use the foot pedal, and it frees up a hand, and it just really speeds things up, and saves a lot of repetitive motion as well, which is important after you've been sitting on this thing for 3-4 hours. So without further ado, we'll start throwing some sparks here. If we get zoomed in on her here pretty good. As you can see, it's fairly quiet. No drama. Just hacked off quite a bit of metal on that. Probably took a good 1/16 of an inch off that cutter in one pass. You can see it digging. Now, just for clarification, this is not a normal sharpening pass for me. This is a rescue mission on this chain, to get a little bit more life out of it after it's been rocked out pretty good. If you look at these cutters really closely, especially this one, I can see it's kind of hooked over here real good. So taking this much material off of it is necessary to put this thing back in service. Nothing special on the angles on this. This chain is, we're doing a 30-degree top plate angle, 60 degrees on the head. And I'm taking the wheel as deep into the gullet as I dare without touching the drive link or a tie strap. Like I said, normally for just a sharpening pass, I'd just barely be kissing these drive link or these cutters, and in this case, I'm actually cutting quite a bit of this tooth off. I'm probably taking a good 20% out of it. This machine is by far my favorite round grinder that I've ever used. I've never used a square grinder, so don't ask me about those yet. But as far as accuracy and build quality, I mean, this grinder is just spot on. I don't know if you saw that one there. We got a little hot on the cutter, a little bit of bluing on the bevel, which really is not a big deal as long as you don't get the thing glowing cherry red, and it polishes up nice on that last pass. I know somebody's going to ask me about Cool Grind, which is a little wax crayon that you can get. It supposedly lubricates the grinding wheel. My opinion on Cool Grind, with these wheels anyway, is that it's totally unnecessary. I haven't tried it with like a pink wheel or anything like that, just because the pink wheels don't really fit on this grinder without an adapter. But as good as these wheels are at hogging metal, there's just really no need for it. You know, on a light pass, you're never going to burn the links. And even as you can see right now, taking off much more metal than I normally would, I'm still winding up with a good result. If I were to hand file this out, this chain would probably take me more than an hour to hand file this thing out. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but this is a 20-inch loop, so it's 72 drive links. That's off a 20-inch bar for a Husqvarna. When I am done here, I am going to turn around and check these rakers. I can almost guarantee you I'm going to have to take them down. So I will definitely show you how that is done here with the USG. And that's it. That's one side of this thing. So switching over, I'm just going to kick it over to the -30 side. -30 on the scale, and then I will switch the little pawl here over, and so that it lines up better with the cutters on the left side of the chain. And that's it. I should be able to run the left side of the chain just the way I did the right. every once in a while, you can see that drive pawl, depending on what type of chain it is, will get hung up on the top of a drive link. So I gotta flick a little bit to back it up. It's kind of annoying. I've kind of played around with the idea of filing the corner on the pawl. I don't think it would affect it much, and it might allow me to back the chain up without worrying about it catching like that. But just something I've thought about doing. I just haven't actually gotten the gumption to actually take a file to it yet. Taking this much material, I am stopping fairly frequently to check and make sure I'm not burning links. But especially here on what I call the blind side of the chain, normally I could move my position so I could see it, but you guys are in the way. So, but it's okay. It's all good. Got a little too far in there. Good stuff. Good stuff. And that's it, we're all the way around. Now, normally I would do a bunch of different chains and run them at, run all the cutters on them, get all the cutters ground off, and then I would change the setup on the grinder and do rakers and do everything in kind of a batch. It saves a lot of time swapping back and forth. But since we're doing a one-off here today with this chain, I'm going to go ahead and switch the grinder over and show you rakers. So first thing I'll do is I'll set the vise back to 0 so the chain's coming straight through, and then we need to go ahead and change the wheel. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see that a little bit better. Alright. There isn't much to it. The nut is a reverse thread. It gets me every time. Once you get this out, that wheel off. Let me get my raker. The raker wheel. Now, my raker wheel, Stihl set wants you to dress these things flat to do the rakers all the time, and we all know we don't really want a flat raker. I'll try and show you, and I don't know if the camera will do it. I don't know if you can see, but the raker of the chain has actually worn a groove into the wheel, creating a little bit of a curved profile. So once you've done a couple chains with this thing, you can the wheel itself will grind the same shape as the raker tooth, which keeps the chain cut nice and smooth in the wood and reduces a lot of vibration and things like that. come down. And I'm actually watching the tooth. All I'm going to do is set the rakers up so that they align. Right in the spot that I want them to in the wheel. Now that the chain is somewhat in position, I'll back the pawl up here, the stop. And set its position just like that. So now we're pretty much set up, ready to go for rakers. But we need to know how much I want to cut. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. A lot of people like to progressively take more off the raker as you get further back, and I'm one of those people now. There's a lot of different gauges and different things that you can use to determine what kind of clearance you need. But my favorite is probably just sticking a piece of flat metal across the top of the chain and using a feeler gauge to feel what actually your clearance is. It's the most precise. You can get a rough idea with like the Stihl type gauge that lays on top of the chain. Let me see if I got one of those handy real quick. Let's see. I do indeed. And that's this style gauge. Let me zoom in on this thing real quick. Now this is the style gauge that you lay down on top of your tooth there. And you can see right in here, that's where the raker pokes up through the top of the gauge. And if the tooth sticks up from there, then that is supposed to indicate that the raker itself needs to be filed. And these do not stick up very much at all, but the problem with these gauges is they are set for one distance and one distance only. And since we're probably in the last 20% of this chain, I like to take it a little deeper than factory. Now, I'm going to take this off. Let's see here. We'll lay this guy on there. You're not going to be able to see this very good with the camera. But now that I have that laying on top of there, if you look underneath of it, you will be able to see that the raker itself is lower than the tips of the chisels. I'm going to grab a feeler gauge real quick. Alright, I got a feeler gauge, and when we get this far down on the chain, I like to go maybe 30,000, maybe even more, depending on the chain. These are not quite 30 thou. Let's see where they are. Let's see, that gauge was about 23 to 25 if I remember correctly. So let's try 25 thou and see if that's where we're at. I'd say they're roughly 25 thou. So what I'm going to do is I'm just barely going to kiss these rakers and take them down to about 30. And we'll see how it cuts. See if I can do this without kicking the camera. Okay. So I'll stop and check this thing again. Just eyeballing it. It doesn't look like we're too bad. And the feeler gauge agrees that we're right about where we want to be. One word of caution if you're doing rakers with the grinder, it does not take much of a touch at all to take a lot off these chains. I mean, you can take 10-15 thousandths off a raker with a, you know, and it will seem like you're doing absolutely nothing. You know, so when you set up, you know, take a little tiny bit at a time. You can see I just barely come down and kiss that thing, and I'm already 5 or 6 thou, you know, down. So I'm going to run through this real quick on this side, and I'll switch the pawl over. I won't have to swing the vise, and do the other side of the rakers too.